Appreciate
Right. So we are going to the next person. Honorable Mr. Thomas Hoon from Singapore, but presently at China. Mr. Thomas Hoon is a highly accomplished sales and business development management executive with over 2 decades of experience in telecommunication, IoT industries across the APAC region, embracing Brian Tracy's philosophy that attitude drives 80% of sales success. Mr. Thomas has cultivated a mindset of positivity, cheerfulness, and goal orientation throughout his career. His journey begins in a startup where he honed his adaptability and problem-solving skills, securing high-profile clients while bootstrapping three ventures. His entrepreneur spirit attracted funding from the Economic Development Board of Singapore, validating his innovative approach, transitioning to multinational corporation. Mr. Thomas excelled in sales leadership and account management, earning accolades for individual and team performance. He mastered corporate structure and strategy planning, achieving over $100 million in sales with over a decade of global explosion. He possesses a deep understanding of diverse cultures and markets, facilitating effective communication and negotiation across various backgrounds. Fluent in multiple languages, including English, Mandarin, Thai, Hokkien, Cantonese, and also Spanish. Mr. Thomas leveraged his linguistic prowess to build meaningful networks and engage stakeholders globally. Mr. Thomas' core competency lies in problem solving, entrepreneurial mindset, team leadership, making him a valuable asset in driving business growth and fostering collaborative success. And many informations. Honorable Mr. Tom has over 25 years of experience doing business across the Asian Pacific, currently based in Cancun, China. He specializes in connecting business opportunity across China and Southeast Asia, leveraging his deep understanding of regional market and culture. So permit me to stop and welcome Honorable Mr. Thomas Hoon from Singapore,
Thank
presently
you.
at China.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Queens, for the detailed introduction. His Excellency, Dr. Terry Goh, good morning to you. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone who is in this group. I'm very delighted to be here to be speaking about my experience. Just a quick introduction again. My name is Thomas Hoon. I'm a Singaporean currently based in Guangdong, China for the past 12 years. So I'm a business connector between Chinese business and Southeast Asia market. Before I start my own business in 2016, I was actually working corporate for 15 years. So I've held key roles with companies in the US, UK, Finland, Korea, Japan, and Israel. So I left corporate in 2016 to start my own business. So today I'm going to talk about conflict management. I was very happy that Dr. Quinn approached me to talk about this topic because I think conflict management is what everybody is encountering, whether is it day-to-day happenings, whether is it country to countries, is something in which everybody face. So I'm delighted to share my experience, but of course, I will not be talking about country to country like His Excellency mentioned earlier. I'm just talking about on a corporate perspective. So do bear with me for the next 20 minutes while I talk about conflict management. So conflict is an intrinsic part of human interaction, especially in professional environments. So in the complex landscape of our workplace dynamics, disagreements are inevitable because conflict is a natural consequences of different people coming together with unique perspective, goals, and approaches. Many professionals like you and me probably view conflict as something to be feared, something to be avoided or suppressed. However, in my own perspective, conflict is fundamentally flawed because conflict, when you understood and manage it correctly, is not just a destructive force, I beg your pardon, but a powerful catalyst for growth, innovation, and deeper understanding. So today, we're going to embark on a comprehensive journey into the world of workplace conflict. We'll dissect the nature, explore the origins. We'll talk about what workplace conflict is, understand why it happened, analyze different types of workplace conflicts, and also a robust approach on how to resolve conflict. And last but not least, how to identify and avoid common conflict resolutions. So, workplace conflict, at its most basic level, it represents a state of disagreement or discord, probably between you and me, or between me to many individuals or a group of people because of incompatible objectives, perceptions, and approaches. So conflict emerges because we have differing values. I'm from Asia. I might be dealing from someone. I'm from Singapore. If I'm dealing from someone from the Philippines, or I could be even dealing from someone from the Western world, United States of America, USA. So we have different values, communication styles. We have different experience of how we grew up. We have different professional objectives. And the biggest part, we also have different personalities. So it's crucial to recognize that conflict is not negative, but in fact, it's a profound indicator of how organization health and individual engagement should be. Why is this so? Because when you talk about healthy conflict, a healthy conflict can encourages open constructive dialogue. It can stimulate creative problem solving because when there's a disagreement, people will come together for a better solution. It challenges existing assumptions so that everybody can move upwards and grow. So a practical example is consider a scenario when a marketing team and product development team disagree on a new product launch. A healthy conflict would help come up with evidence-based arguments and a collaborative approach where we'll come up with a better solution at the end of the day for our company. But of course, anything positive, there's a downside to it. So a destructive conflict is talk about interpersonal tension. You start to hate your colleagues. You start to hate your bosses. It undermines team cohesion. And once you are disagreement with your colleagues, you might not feel motivated to work in the workplace, and it creates stress on you. So these are all signs of destructive conflict. So it leads to things like personal attacks, people fighting each other, communication breakdown, and reduce collaborative capacity. So the psychology dynamics of a conflict. Conflict is not just an external phenomenon, but a deeply psychological one. It triggers a lot of emotional aspects in a person. So you start to be threatened. You feel threatened that, hey, why is this person talking to me in this way? Is he going to undermine what I'm going to do in the company? You started to become very defensive. Hey, that's not my fault. I think it's your fault. And ego comes into the picture and you start to protect your own territory. So these are all negative conflicts. And later at this part of the show, I will talk about how do we manage them. But before that, I will explain to you why does conflict happens. So personally, I think conflict happens because of 5 different sources. Miscommunication, personality differences, work style clashes, competing priorities, and limited resources in the workplace. So let me go through one by one. Miscommunication. Many conflicts stem from misunderstanding. For instance, when you send an email to your colleague, hey, let's discuss this problem. But to someone receiving it, it seems not very personal. And he might say, I don't care about this, or I need more time to think about this. So a poorly worded message, which you send to your colleague, might feel like a threat. Another example, a manager tells his employee, um, this report is urgent. So the employee prioritizes that particular request from the manager and overlook other work, only to find out that urgent means next week. So because of this miscommunication, it results in frustration. It results in conflict. The other reason why conflict happens is because of personality clash. Different people have diverse communication styles, temperaments, and approaches to work. An extrovert, fast-paced worker might struggle to collaborate with someone who is more detail-oriented and cautious. It even happens in my company. I'm an entrepreneur. I set up 4 business currently. So based on based on my experience, I love to move fast. But when I hire someone who has 20 years in a corporate, people will start questioning, why are we moving so fast? Why are we not doing my due diligence? So this is when personality differences or even experiences differences actually cause a conflict. Of course, there's work style clashes. Different approaches can create friction. Some people prefer structured, others are spontaneous. So a project manager maybe insists on a strict timelines, may struggle with a creative team member who prefers to brainstorm freely before committing to deadlines. I beg your pardon. Competing priorities. Different departments or team members had conflicting goals. As a salesperson, I wish to close deals quickly, but the finance team will start to focus on risk assessment, whether there's risk to the company if I close this deal or get in this customer. And of course, limited resources. When you are working in a small company with limited resources, everybody is competing for the same resources, whether is it for budget, whether is it for decision making. So conflict is inevitable. So without a clear criteria for allocation, resentments actually build up. So I mentioned to you these 5 different causes of conflict. Understanding these common causes actually helps address the root of the problem rather than its symptoms. So who is involved? Understanding conflict between 2 people. Conflict in the workplace just doesn't happen randomly. It occurs at different level and it requires very flexible and different approach. So 3 common types of conflict: peer-to-peer, employee-manager, and interdepartmental. An example of peer-to-peer. Emma and Jason are both marketing executives assigned to big campaign. So maybe Emma would like to start on the task, but Jason would like to work best. Jason maybe feels that he would like to do things on the last minute. So this is a pure classic case of a work style difference. Emma values structure while Jason thrives under pressure. So without communication, frustration builds. But of course, to solve this, they can just have a simple discussion in which they can align their expectations to resolve this conflict. And of course, there's this classic employee and manager. How many of you actually hated your manager and say, hey, this is not how things should be done? But of course, you wouldn't address him directly, right? So this is also another way conflict can happen. Excuse me. So David, who is the manager, tells Lisa, your last report was full of errors. You need to be more careful next time. To me, this is a positive engagement, but maybe to Lisa, he might be embarrassed. Okay, I'll do better next time. But Lisa will feel that, oh, David is publicly criticizing me, and it makes Lisa feel disrespected. And because of this, Lisa shuts down and affects future communication. So in this case, instead of addressing Lisa publicly, I would rather choose to bring Lisa to a site and have a private conversation with her to make sure that it's more effective. And last but not least, of course, interdepartmental. Departments in big organizations are always competing with different objectives. So a classic example, the IT and sales and marketing. IT department will want strict security measures, but marketing team needs access to various tools to campaigns. So marketing team will say, hey, why can't I use this new analytics software that I buy? It's essential for our campaign. But IT manager will come in and say, oh no, security come first. If we allow uncontrolled access, we risk exposing company data. But marketing will say, but if we don't use this, we'll be falling behind competitors. So you see in a scenario like this, different departments have different priorities. IT prioritize security, while marketing focus on flexibility. And once again, without open dialogue, this can lead to inefficiency and frustration. Which comes to the next point. How do we resolve conflict? I'll introduce a simple framework, which is a 4-step framework to resolve conflict. First of all, handling conflict is like diffusing a bomb. You need the right approach. You need to acknowledge the conflict. Like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, conflict is not necessarily negative. If managed well, it actually helps the organization to be better. But of course, if you do not address and acknowledge the conflict, it doesn't disappear. The problem becomes bigger in the future. So, as a manager, instead of telling your employee that you always miss deadlines, perhaps you can tell your employee and mention, I noticed there's some delays. Can we discuss what's causing them? So, communication skills plays an important part of resolving conflict. So, second part, listen to understand, not to respond. Most conflicts escalate because people listen to argue, not to understand. So when people listen to argue, they start to form a defense. So for example, if a colleague says, I feel like my ideas are not valued. So as a fellow colleague, instead of replying, that's not true, you immediately put the other person into a defensive position. Perhaps you could say, I hear that you feel overlooked. Can you share more about what's making you feeling this way? Listen to understand, not to respond. And the next is find a common ground. Conflict isn't about winning or losing. It's aligning interests so that both of you or the people who is in the conflict actually wins. And last but not least, agreeing on next steps. A conversation without action leads to unresolved conflicts. So instead, you could say, let's set up a weekly check-in to ensure we align moving forward. So with this 4 steps framework, we can resolve conflicts effectively. So in short, conflicts is not necessarily negative. If managed correctly, conflict could be a tool in which to help you improve an organization performance. And based on what I mentioned, communication, the way how you communicate actually plays a very huge role in making sure that you are managing conflict correctly. And with this, I'll end my presentation.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas On. I've always think every time you join us, there's always a lot of informations that you share with us that we can work and reckon and also to build a good relationship, not only within the family, but also in a company sector or business or professional sector. And like I always say that the main reason why we're doing all this masterclass is to reason together because, like for example, what you've shared today, I know it's in the basics of professionalism or business entrepreneurship, but the same principle we can apply it to our lives. We can apply it to our relationship with our family, our spouse. We can apply it even with our friends and other things. So that's why I think that any principles on one side, we also apply to any other relationship. And also to base it that the most important thing is that most of these principles are also in the Bible. If we go through the study in the Bible, we see that most of it, you can get it in any book. But the way you've expressed it makes it better for us, and that is why masterclass is very important. You might see it in Google, you might see it in any book or something, but getting a better understanding will move us forward. You understand? And for us to get the better understanding is why we encourage people to come together so that we can share it, because your way of looking at it might be different from my way. My own understanding might be different from the understanding from Pastor Howardino or from Mr. Thomas. But when we all come together and we're reasoning together, we're sharing and getting better understanding, then we can apply it into our relationship. And my focus, especially for our younger ones in this platform, is that when you join any masterclass or conference or seminars or webinar, try to get a better understanding. Because when you get the understanding, then you'll be able to apply it into your lives. And that is where you will now be experiencing transformation in your relationship and even in your leadership. So I want to say thank you so much, Mr. Thomas On from Singapore, presently in China. Thank you for
Pleasure.
sharing with us this afternoon or this
Thank
morning.
you.
Okay, so now we need to move on.